And how's that been? Like, I'm sure it was a major adjustment to go from living in Senegal to living in the U.S. Of course, you've been here before, but what were some of the things that you just had to adjust to living life here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, it's, it's very, very, very different. In Senegal, first of all, it's monotone. You always see Senegalese folks. It's rare that you see people from different background. And here in the United States, you have all this diversity, which make it like really beautiful. You see people from Europe, from Asia, even the locally here, it's diverse. You have the Black African American, you have the white, the Asians, etc. It's so diverse, and which make it beautiful. So that was one of the main differences. The other one is really the scarcity we have in Africa.
Yeah.
So in terms of like food, like resources, even though we have a lot of resources, but when it comes to like food, eating, etc., with things like you can buy, it's very scarce. You don't have enough money to go buy it, as opposed to here in America. Everything is so abundant. You
Yeah.
have so much food, even going to waste. So everything is big.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one is complete. It's a complete difference between America and Senegal.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something we don't even think about. It's like, everything here is like abundance, and we waste so much.
Yeah.
We waste so much. A
Yeah.
lot of stuff gets taken for granted here. And it's just good to have perspective of, being in another country that doesn't have certain things. And, every time you go back, there's a lot of great things about Africa. Sierra Leone, Liberia, Senegal. There's a lot of great things, but there's certain things that you just get used to the
Yeah.
luxuries of Western culture, which just kind of makes it a little difficult to travel. But that also means that there's opportunity to grow and
Exactly.
build, and I think that's one of the things that you're really working on. And how do you actually develop over there? So there's not as much of a I need to go to the West or I need to live in America to have certain amenities, certain luxuries. We should be able to have that,
At home.
yeah, in mass. It
Exactly.
shouldn't be just reserved for a few people.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
agree with you.
Yeah. I remember the first time I visited Liberia, and I saw real poverty. Because we actually stopped in Sierra Leone first. So we stopped in Sierra Leone, dropped some folks off, picked some folks up, and then went forward to Liberia. And when we landed in Sierra Leone, as we were flying, we were flying over. We got to Sierra Leone like as the sun was like about to set, so it was still bright enough for me to look down and see the land. And of course, I'm looking at Africa. I'm like, this it's home. I'm happy, beautiful, and I'm like, it wasn't all the way home because I'm not. It's not Liberia, but it's Sierra Leone right next door, and I'm like, it's Africa, home.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And I look down and I see my people, and I see because we're close enough to the ground where you can see, and I'm like, this is real poverty.
Yeah, it's tough.
Like even the poverty that we have in America, that's not
It's
because there's
different.
there's a
Yeah.
lot
It's
of
different.
resources out there to help.
Exactly.
And it's just it hits very different. It actually completely changed my perspective on what it means to be impoverished. Because in America, like in Atlanta, we do live in a city where it is very difficult for it's actually virtually impossible in some cases for people who were born in poverty to get out of that cycle.
Yeah.
But in countries like Liberia and Sierra Leone, and maybe the same thing in Senegal as well, it really is, unless a savior comes
Yeah.
to actually pull you out and do something,
Yes.
you really gonna be stuck there.
It's very tough. Yeah.
You're really gonna be
Yeah,
stuck
it's
there.
very tough.
And
exactly.
that changed my perspective on a lot of things and how I deal with Liberia and Africa and the people in general and what that's like. So I mean, did that have an impact when you came here and your experiences in growing up in Senegal and traveling other places? Did that have an impact on how it is that you do your career now?
Yeah, it really did. Seeing all that poverty. But there's one key difference in there. It's like in Africa, you have, let me say in Senegal, for example, even though you see people that are like extremely poor and they accept their fate that it might never change, right? As opposed to here, some might still have these African dreams, like we can still make it, etc. You have the sense of community, for example. One family can cook and then take a plate, take it to the to the homeless so they can eat, etc.
Yeah.
And then next time it will be the turn of another family who's gonna do it, etc. So even though they are homeless, but they are still like they know the guys, like the family know them, right, and they can rely on them to get food, etc. Whereas here in America, it's it's more an individualistic,
Individualistic mindset,
individualistic
yeah.
Yeah.
mindset. It's like, yeah, let me just do my thing, do your thing, etc.
Yeah.
So yeah, seeing all that coming here, having limited resources, I'm not like really a big fan of waste. So I know what I left behind. For example, my family, the amount of investment they have put in me, like the college is not cheap. So it's
You're right.
just one
International tuition.
semester of college could be like 2 years of salary from my father, right?
Wow.
So I'm not gonna waste
Yeah.
that investment
Yeah.
he put into me. So naturally, take advantage of, those type of investments he put in me, and just making sure I will be able to pay back. So that kind of the framework I came here with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. That's powerful.
Yeah, but also uh, I just I think there is a type of like synergy that can happen. Like for example, you being from Liberia and Sierra Leone, and then me from Senegal, but being here,
Yeah.
sitting in a completely different continent. So I think it's also like a really beautiful thing.
Yeah. That's actually like the purpose of this, being able to connect us, because we're from different cultures or different countries, have similar cultures, and then there's a lot of misconceptions or between like people who are in Africa versus people that are like in the diaspora live in America, and there's something that we really need to come together about. And I like what you mentioned, just talking about just the lack of resources, but the fact that we have community, like that's huge. Like that's actually like a very important African concept that like through the process of slavery, chattel slavery, that was lost. And they, since even before then, like the biggest threat to African people has always been the lack of unity, and that's always been the weak point that has been exploited by others when they
Exactly.
want to
Yeah.
take control of us. One thing, we had tribes, and they leveraged the tribal differences to be
Yep.
able to take control of us, and now they're trying to divide us along like country lines. We're in the U.S. or you're in Africa. There's another way to divide us, but the actual African culture and Pan-African mindset states that we are all community and we look out for one another. Where in the U.S. is like very much individual, and that all of that is very intentionally done
Yeah.
to make us think that way, as opposed to thinking of each other as collaborators. We think of each other as
Exactly.
competitors.